think about
For
that.
gas, how much that would cost. So we have a rate, we have a.
How are you ladies? Very good. Well, I got you that.
Do you shut down the ski hill when that happens?
Not the best time to ski.
We used to go below zero.
Yeah, at 15 below we call it.
Okay.
It's not safe for staff to be out there either.
Yeah.
So, and things can break so much easier when
Yeah.
it's so cold, so we just call it.
Amazing how iron's left.
Yeah,
Because
it's very hard on equipment.
We used to go to Granite Peak in Wausau.
Yeah.
My parents would always pick us up from school and we'd go.
Was
2 or
it
3
Granite
nights a week.
Peak or was it Red Mountain?
It was Granite Peak.
Was it? Okay.
Yeah. So we had season passes there. I remember going below zero too, like just really lonely.
Are they gonna be up on the screen?
Yep, Sarah and Andy will be up on the screen.
It's okay.
Why don't you get out of the line for Al first?
Okay, so if you start rolling, get out of the way.
I gave her $20, so if you get out of the show,
Come on. Go to the camera here. Go on.
Yeah, she'll need to lead a temporary.
What?
We didn't put election of a chair and vice chair on the agenda, so you'll need to lead the temporary election of a, or election of a temporary chair.
Yeah.
So if you have the chair then.
Unless the committee wants.
Okay. So do I need to call the meeting to order then, right? Okay, I call the meeting to order of the ad hoc roles and responsibilities meeting. Up first is, nomination for chair of the committee. Is there any nominations?
And this is just temporary chair for today's meeting only.
I'll second it.
Any other? Is there any other nominations? Any other nominations?
I'll move to cast the unanimous ballot for John.
Right,
Second.
already want to do this, I'm so sorry.
It's good. Obviously, we're a little slow on this, right, since it's only temporary for the first meeting.
Right.
This is just for the first meeting.
At the next meeting, so, yeah.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? John, you take it from here.
Thanks, Connie. Introductions. Sarah and Andy, can they hear us?
No, we can't hear you at all.
Okay, that's good then.
I'm Andy Phillips, McCullough Law. Great to be here. This is a discussion that we started back in the first week of December about roles, responsibilities, admin coordinator, job duties, and so on. So it's awesome to finally be getting back together to continue the discussion. I'll let Sarah introduce herself.
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Sarah Diedrich Kastorf, the Director of Outreach and Member Engagement at WCA. Happy to be here today to assist you in any way we can as you continue on with your very important discussions at the county level.
Okay, and I think they all know me, John Kale. Supervisor Chair?
Kurt Gorslinger, District 13.
Suzanne Moss, District 7.
Anthony Halbert, District 3.
Phil Undershoots, District 9.
Who wants to go?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Ashley Heath, Administrative Coordinator.
Ashley Good is HR Manager.
Connie Meyer, County Clerk. Laura
Okay.
Zetterman, Assistant Editor of the newspaper. I don't really even know who I am.
Okay. All right, moving on. Gee, setting goals of committee. Do they have the same printout that we, Ashley?
Yep, I emailed those over to Sarah late last week, I think.
So right now, what I gave them is this agenda, but there was another one, I'm sorry. I think this is the second, Phil, would you take this, please?
You did this wrong, huh?
There's a second one.
The second one was just the addition of those
With the
questions that WCA had sent.
But that's where we are.
You guys need one?
No, we haven't.
Okay,
We're
so
ready.
I have it.
Andy and Sarah, do you wanna go with the review of the administrative coordinator job description?
Oh, Sarah had requested if number 6 could go above 4 and 5. We had already posted at that time though.
So you wanna go to number 6?
Yeah, if there are no
Roles and
objections.
responsibilities? With the questions, is what you're saying?
Sarah, jump in if I'm wrong in that understanding, but you guys had wanted to run through those questions that we sent to homework first.
That's exactly right. If we could do that, that'd be awesome.
Okay, yeah, we can do that. All right, so, tell me all of the reasons why the board is discussing the roles of administrative coordinator. That's question 1. Anybody wanna step out and read off what their train of thought of that is?
Yeah, just trying to find the best fit for the county.
So we all know the responsibilities of each person. I don't know if we all do know, so.
I think when we had that first training, the one thing I remember, I think I remember being said was, you know, currently our administrative coordinator is just a paper pusher and really doesn't have any authority. And I think that needs to get looked at to, you know, to maybe take over some more responsibilities and some more authority.
For the record, I don't think I ever called Ashley a paper pusher, so I'm sorry if I offended you, Ashley.
No.
I remember that.
Alright, good.
Well, and like you said, I think it was who's really driving the ship. To me, it's not so much all the role of the administrative coordinator, but the relationship between that position and the board, right? And it seems like our current system is pretty inefficient, and there's not a lot of trust, unfortunately, and because accountability is questionable, right? It's easy to say, well, the board did that, or the administration. It's not a clear delineation of, to some people, it seems, who's responsible for what.
Well, here's my version. It's kind of lengthy. There doesn't seem to be any roles in place. She or he is expected to oversee, make decisions, but has no real authority to do so. The staff feels like they don't have to listen at she or he because they feel she or he has no authority. The job description is very open-ended without a lot of detail as the expectations. It is she or he supposed to have roles versus expectations or versus authority. Is she or he in the current capacity and the current expectations acting as more an administrator versus an administrative coordinator? Some things in this current job description seem to be contradicting AC versus administrator. Does she or he have any power? Why why should or shouldn't this position have power? Are we expecting currently this position to do the administrative functions with an administrative coordinator title? Why do we have an AC versus an administrator? Do we just not want to give power, or would it be too hard to hire someone with the required qualifications? Is it a trust thing, or is it a trust thing and the board wants to micromanage, or lies the problem with the board? Is our county in need of a administrator versus a administrative coordinator? That's what I came up with. I was doing a lot of thinking last night. So I guess that brings us back to the question, why is the board discussing the role of the AC? Well, Kathy summed it up in a lot of her words is, nobody's driving the ship. Because a lot of this contradicts everything. The AC is expected to do a lot of things, whether it's me or anybody asking her to do it, and some of that stuff falls into an administrator role. So, yes, I'm lost as to where to go from here. As I look at Andy.
You look at me when you're lost, John, it's heartwarming.
Andy carries the compass, right?
Well,
Something like that.
You and Andy, I kind of carry the compass.
Well, yeah, and just so you guys are aware too, I am taking copious notes as you answer these questions. So that later on, as we continue these discussions, if we need to go back and reference them, we can.
Okay. Sorry, mine was lengthy.
I know, I'm trying to write as fast as you guys can speak, so.
I'm sensing frustration that we don't have clear delineation of roles within Rusk County government. And I think if I heard your chair correctly, we're concerned that we don't have a person with operational authority, administrative authority in the administrative coordinator position, not because of the incumbent who's there, but because we haven't given that person the appropriate power or authority to make those decisions. Is that right?
I'd say that's a fair statement.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd say that's a fair statement. Do you wanna keep reading all through these as we go, or do you just wanna stop?
I do. I was gonna, is there anything else on question one, or are we on question two?
Does anybody else have anything? Yeah,
I don't know if this is the time to ask this question. Who is our administrative coordinator? Ashley, right? I'd like to ask Ashley, how do you feel about what you're doing now? And do you feel that she's got it all prepared? Good.
Thank you, Sue. Okay, so I would echo what you all have said. This is confusing for you, so you can imagine the amount of confusion that I'm under. No one seems to know exactly what the AC is supposed to do. You ask 5 people, you'll get 5 different answers. I've been told by board members both that I'm doing too much and that I'm not doing enough. Failures, whether operational, fiscal, or personnel related, seem to be placed on my shoulders, yet I don't seem to have a mechanism to affect any of those things. You know, if someone says, well, this department is way out of whack and why aren't you doing anything about it? You know, I talked to Rich Summerfield, I asked for guidance, and there seems to be nothing I can do other than ask the department head to please get better. I would say that our county is becoming inefficient and inconsistent, and part of why morale is so low is because of the inconsistencies, because we have so many different committees, and one committee might stick to their guns and say, nope, this is the policy, we're enforcing it, but then when the department head asks the next committee, that next committee will say, well, we understand where you're coming from, so you know what, we'll bend the policy for you this time. And that seems to be taking its toll on a lot of the staff members. One specific example was when I presented the capital improvement plan. I was asked who gave you the authority to even do this, but this was something that Andy, the former AC, had done every 5 years, and the plan expired in 2024, so I guess maybe wrongly I just assumed that that was something I should
that soak in and kinda keep moving down the list. B, what is working well in Rusk County?
So I'll go. So, I think there are a lot of very good employees in Rusk County who work here because they believe in the cause and are very dedicated. There's a lot of longtime loyal employees that could go elsewhere that stay. It's a great place to live. It's a very attractive county. A lot of people who live here have a lot of pride in the fact that they live here and are very vested. So there's a lot of employees who are vested. There's a citizenry that's very invested in making Rusk County succeed. We just need to get on the path.
You know, the balance is on the path. Good response.
That was very good.
That's a better way of saying what I was gonna say.
Thank you.
What do you, Kurt?
I was struggling to think of something actually, but I mean, what she said was hit the point very well. I mean, I don't know, I've said this half a dozen times in the past that I believe my wife is like the highest senior county employee. She's been here like 37 years. And she said this is the lowest that she's seen it in her career here, for various reasons. And I know that that's not a popular thing to say, and I'm not sure how you get out of that rut, but I think that maybe through this process, we can start to get out of that rut and start to come back again. You're right, there's a lot of good, long, dedicated employees, but there's a lot of good, dedicated employees that have left, because of the environment. So hopefully this process will help that, improve that.
It would be nice to be able to reward longevity. It's my understanding that current system does not really do that at all. And also, to have performance reviews, you guys don't actually do performance reviews?
Oh, this county has been without an HR
And now we have a fantastic one.
years.
Well, okay, but this goes back to roles and responsibilities.
Right.
If no one is in charge of the department heads,
Right.
who's gonna hold the department head accountable to make sure they're doing these performance reviews? If something comes up in the performance review and HR says you need to do something about it, the department head says, no, I'm good, I'm not the final decision maker, so again, it's that vicious circle of no one's really in charge.
Yeah, like performance is not rewarded and non-performance may or may not be held accountable.
Sure.
So that breeds mistrust and resentment and frustration and
I'm a big
people
fan
feeling
of performance-based, wage increases.
you are or
I am.
Oh, I agree. You got anything to add?
Kathy said it was very good.
Well, I'll echo off Kathy, what she said. And I also think our HR department is working well and has gotten staff under control for the most part. New procedures with the budget processing requires department heads to bring forth their budget each month with a new budget sheet. Other than that, I'm kind of like Kurt, what else is there what's working well?
So, a lot of people are actually retiring here,
And maybe I'm looking at
such as me and my buddies, right?
Yeah.
So, I do think we need to work more on economic development. We need more money, right, to solve a lot of our problems. But, I know a lot of people such as us who came here and are retiring here, have a discretionary interest or interest in the community and bettering the community and things like that. It's kind of look a little big picture. And
there's probably a lot more well or good out there than I can see. I by no means want to say there's not, because there is. I just probably ain't seen a lot of it.
I do think not having economic development be a priority, it seems like it's not a priority
We didn't talk about that.
county not to make an impossible job.
Right, we don't wanna go back to the Andy
Well,
days.
yeah, we don't wanna give her like 7 titles and expect her to run a marathon. You know,
No, I get it.
that's kinda like,
I just-
and nothing against Andy.
Yeah.
That's kinda what happened to him, is he got pushed into too much and just kept taking it on and on and on, and then pretty soon he was just bogged down. So we
Well,
had to
we
do
did split that into 3 different positions, and the way I gathered from what Ashley said is she's looking for some more responsibilities here possibly.
Well, not with economic development, I'm looking for more responsibilities in terms of, I can't affect any change fiscally, operationally, personnel wise. I'm not looking for more daily duties, I have a list of everything I've done for an entire week if you'd like to read them.
She wants authority.
I need, if the board is gonna continue to expect change to happen, I need a mechanism to affect that change. Or someone does.
Alright, is there any other questions or anything else on that one? If not, we'll move to the next one. Writing this all down, right, Sarah?
You bet, I'm writing it all down.
Alright. C, what is not working well in Rusk County? Who'd like to take that one away?
Let's start. Mine, what's not working well in Rusk County kind of goes on with what our, number 4 answer is. So I put, sometimes committee members have to get involved with day-to-day operations because there is no one in charge of certain areas, and nothing in the administrative coordinator's job description that says that she has to do anything in certain departments, so, you know, we're kind of here more to provide oversight and give direction and not really get involved in the day-to-day operations.
I agree with that. We talked about the trust and the turnover and morale. Those are all big issues, and the fact that there's no money makes things pretty hard.
That makes it hard for every employee in the county, every board member.
And like Ashley said, you know, I do think the committees provide inconsistent, like, it would be, I think we have to do something about our committee structure too, because it's so inefficient to have to go to so many different committees on every little thing.
7 different committees that you're on,
Right, to the beginning, right, it's very inefficient, and
Or the committee shopping, we've seen that before.
yeah. And staff spends a lot of time in meetings too, right? So, yeah, I think, you know, we're not here to manage the county, we're here to provide perspective on policy and oversight. Not to, it even says in the description not to do minutia. So, and I'm obviously I'm new and I'm still learning, but I do not understand some of the stuff that we talk about and other huge stuff that it seems like we don't. I don't know where that's being talked about. It's confusing.
You're not wrong.
I'm not missing it?
No.
Okay.
No, you're not. You're pretty spot on.
It kinda seems like county is not being run, but it's the few people that are doing their job and doing it well and maybe doing someone else's job also. And then, like you say, morale's so low within that, and it just seems to keep going like that, and I think we really do have to get a hold of the roles and responsibilities, and so people know just what they're supposed to do. But it seems like there are a few people that are carrying the whole load.
I mean, I agree with everything that's been said. One, yeah, I mean, have department heads that are supposed to run their departments, they present their budgets, they turn them in, they get them approved, and then at a committee meeting, we sit there and approve them to go to a training for $100. It's a waste of, it's just, the department head knows if their employee needs to go to training. I don't think that us as a county board member need to micromanage that to go to training. That doesn't make sense to me. I mean, if the money's been budgeted, and the training has to happen, why should we waste our time on signing a piece of paper saying they can go to training? Just little things like that need to get cleaned up. Just said that. I just shake my head every time. I'm like, it's mandatory training. I just don't understand. Anyway, that's just little things like that need to get sped up and cleaned up and tidied up. I mean, I don't think a department head's gonna, I just don't think a department head's gonna uselessly spend money by sending one of their employees to training if it's not necessary. I mean, anyway, so little things like that need to get sped up and tidied up and clean. And that would even help morale, because it seems like on the employees from the bottom up saying, you know, gotta beg to go to training when they should have to. They should just be able to go to training, you know, and they look at it as us sitting at this table going, you know, you have to come beg us. I just don't think it should be like that.
Okay, this one I had wrong.
This is gonna be the next question.
Text paragraphs.
Well, some of this stuff might be resaid, but it's just a different take on my spin. But building doesn't function as a whole identity. Each department is out to get one another. Too much blame placing, too much distrust, too much micromanaging, too much goes from committee to another committee, then to the board, then back to a committee, and so on, and pushed back around so many times. Tons of wasted time and money have all these meetings. Finding board members with, I read this several times, but now I'm in front of the crowd. Finding board members that with the availability, time, and want to sit on all these committees and come to special board meetings with the public interest in being involved. That was a little short. I could have went a lot longer, but I think the first one was
So is this one we can ask Ashley again?
yeah, I think we should ask Ashley.
Are you ready for this? Okay, so I'm just being brutally honest because thank you for doing this and giving us the opportunity to give our opinions. What I see sitting in my office from the day to day is that the way Rusk County is set up, right, wrong, whatever, is that the board is in charge of both big picture policy decisions and day-to-day operational decisions. So kind of what Kathy and Kurt are saying, you know, we approve this budget for our department heads, we trust our department heads to run their department, and yet, but every time you need to spend that money, you gotta come back to us and ask. Right now, with our current budget situation, it seems like everything is being approved when it comes to the committee as well. So further, you're just kind of rubber stamping. I have yet to be to a meeting where someone is told no on something. Certain committees are overriding policies, whether they're personnel policies or financial policies set by the full board, which is causing inconsistencies in when, how, and who we apply policies to. I have had several people in my office, I don't know if Ashley wants to speak further on this, but this is contributing to our already low morale, because what it's seeming like right now is that good employees who follow policy are being punished, but those without respect for the policies, who have the guts to come and ask the committee to violate policy, are being rewarded. I have heard that from several employees in the last week or so. That's the perception right now with our employees. Also, the department heads reporting directly to committees is increasingly becoming an issue. Committees really aren't supposed to be involved in the day-to-day, but some department heads, not all, most of our employees are great, but some department heads have learned how to approach a committee to get what they want, and might leave certain information out that you guys aren't aware of and you shouldn't be aware of because you're not involved in the day-to-day. And then that leads to issues on the back end when it gets to administration or the finance department, because something was approved that really shouldn't have been because maybe you guys aren't aware of all of our policies. And unfortunately, the kind of lack of oversight and accountability is trickling down into a few of our departments as well. So if, you know, if the example isn't being set at the top, it trickles down into the rest of the staff. I would also just reiterate that the job description of the AC isn't working. Here's a couple examples. It states that most of my duties are in concert with or at the direction of another person or position. You have it in front of you, you know, in concert with corp counsel or at the direction of the board chair. So that leaves me wondering, am I just supposed to sit in my office and wait for Rich or John to call me and tell me what to do? The job description also states that the AC will implement policy put forth by the county board, but I have no authority to enforce that policy. So what are your expectations of me in terms of that? It also states that the AC advocates for department heads during the budget period. Should the AC really be advocating for department heads when I work for you guys? Shouldn't I be advocating, you know, that is confusing in and of itself. If I'm fighting for department heads, aren't I working against you guys as the body? So that would be nice to clear that up. And in reading the job description, the AC really can't do anything without the okay of the board chair. However, the board supervisor's job description states that supervisors should never direct or interfere with an employee's daily work. So just utter confusion on my end.
Oh, that was a lot to take in.
Every time you wrote a lot.
I'm sorry, I forgot you were here.
That's fine, I mainly wrote in
You have
this
something.
one. Well, if you don't mind, I will share for this one, kind of more from the personnel side of it. So what I had put, for this one is, there's no one in charge, which is causing chaos in the building. The AC and HR manager are tasked with carrying out policies that the board sets forth. This only works though in some departments and is causing major inconsistencies. If an employee or department head comes forward with a policy question, I do answer it per our guidelines, per our handbook, you know, give them all of that advice. But administration has no power or control, but will take all the blame for personnel things that go wrong. But we're not the ones making any of these decisions or even involved in most of them, as usually, most committees, at least that I'm a part of, personnel, when department heads come forward and present what they wanna do or how they don't wanna follow the policies, committees do not even ask our opinions on, you know, from a legal standpoint, how are we sitting with this, or, you know, from administration, what do you think about this? So what this is causing to is very, very inconsistent practices, which are going to end up getting us in trouble, depending on the committees and what decision the board members want to make that day. Furthermore, I said, I feel we cannot win, so we are told that the purpose of committee meetings is for the board members themselves to make the decisions, and employees are really not supposed to speak unless we're asked or we're presenting. However, this has happened to me numerous times. If I keep quiet, or I know you feel the same way, if we keep quiet about a topic and what our professional opinions are, and then we don't share those opinions, and then it later blows up down the road, we are the ones that get blamed, whether we get blamed in the public or in the full boardroom or behind closed doors from just one board member. But if we're proactive and share our opinions or our reasonings, then we're told we're overstepping. So the same goes forward with bringing policies. So I feel like I'm kind of like we're stuck, like no matter what we do, we're damned if we do, damned if we don't. And then I just had a couple of things that kind of overlaps with what the admin coordinator is in like the job description. One of my tasks is to plan, implement, and evaluate employee relations and all of our human resources policies, programs, and practices. But I cannot implement a lot of policies in this because if an individual or a department head disagrees with HR, even the handbook, they take that and they go to a committee and ask for approval to go around that. And then that's where our inconsistencies are coming into play depending on what committee it is and what the board member's decision is. Same with, I have to bring, it says right in here that I manage a pay plan by conducting periodic pay surveys and bring forward to the board recommendations, planning, and implementing pay structure revisions. Then I go and bring forward pay structure revisions and no, this is the wrong time, how dare you, you're overstepping with even, you know, bringing this stuff forward. And then lastly, a big part of the job is ensuring planning, monitoring, and appraisal of employee work results by training department heads to coach and discipline their employees, hear and resolve grievances, and counsel employees and supervisors in accordance with the personnel handbook. So I do that. I do train and talk to department heads on disciplines, counseling employees, and all of that, but it's up to them as the department head to follow what I want to say. So the department head, if essentially, for lack of better words, gets the final say. So say HR feels that someone did violate our handbook, and needs to be disciplined or even just coached or talked to regarding that handbook or policy, and the department head states they don't want to, we don't do anything, and then the employee can just continue doing on what they're doing. And then I get questioned from board members like, why is this employee allowed to do this, or why is this employee allowed to do that? And then there have been comments at times that, well, then the department head needs to be sat down and reined in. Well, again, no power, no control, that's up to the committee, but then a lot of times the oversight committee doesn't want to task that and deal with those issues. So that's what I have.
Would it be fair to say that we should be looking at your job description as well, and some of the policies and how it relates to HR?
I think it kind of goes hand in hand.
Not just AC, but kind of both.
Well, I think if you clean up the administrative coordinator job description, then HR would be reporting to me rather than to the personnel committee.
Yeah, because the last line I have in here is my job description: enforce guidelines that are prepared and recommended, human resource policies and procedures. But it's again impossible to enforce as there's no power say.
The department heads one is probably a little more difficult because they're appointed by the full board compared to an employee, right?
Yeah.
That one might take a little more.
Hang on though, Andy or Sarah, could you intervene in that question? Don't a lot of counties, even with administrators, an administrator might hire the HR manager, but it's up to the full board to confirm that hire?
Yeah, under 59.18, which is the administrator statute, all department heads are appointed by the county administrator subject to board confirmation. And then that department head will serve at the pleasure of the county administrator.
Right, so you're still getting the final sign off from the full board. So, I don't think that's an obstacle. I wouldn't think, unless I'm wrong, Andy.
Get to the administrator route.
Hey, you broke up there for a second, Ashley. What was the question?
No, so the question that came up is department heads would be hard to wrangle or discipline or something like that, because in our administrative coordinator form of government, those department heads are appointed by the county board.
Well, you can delegate as a board, you can delegate that authority to the administrative coordinator. You just have to delegate that authority properly through, I would prefer it be through ordinance. You can delegate through personnel policy, you can delegate through job description.
We would have to change something though that says it takes a 2/3 majority vote of the board, because I mean, if you only have so much strings you can pull on, I mean, you say them up a couple of times and they're like, well, if I can still go to the board, you really can't touch my job, right? And yes, we don't administrate.
So is the question,
I think
and
when
I apologize, for some reason my connection is choppy, so if I could just have that repeated, is that the question?
Yeah, I think the question, Andy, Phil, step in if or speak up maybe, is our current policy is that it takes a 2/3 vote of the county board to terminate an appointed position. So how would that look if some authority were to be delegated to the AC?
Yeah, so if you kept just the AC position, and she had authority to correct these, but she didn't have authority to fire, they could say, well, you can't touch my job because I gotta take off 2/3 of the board, right?
That's a disconnect. We would wanna modify that rule. We would wanna modify that ordinance if it's an ordinance. And we would want to say that department head can be disciplined by the administrative coordinator. Now, I will tell you that there are certain counties that have said that when it comes to termination of a department head, we're gonna have the administrative coordinator check in with the committee first. So you could do that, but, I would prefer to see that the department head serve the pleasure of the administrative coordinator so that the administrative coordinator can fully implement whatever decisions and policy direction the board sets.
Unlike we are right now, where they don't have to, they don't even have to listen. That's an issue. I mean, they can just run free rein.
My committee.
Now. All right, any more on this topic at the moment? Girls?
I just have one last paragraph that at the bottom. The only other thing I was gonna say is that committee members a lot of times are not the experts or have qualifications in that specific field. While they do have really good feedback, they do not have all the knowledge of the day-to-day operations and not an expert in that field, which that's what leads to inconsistent practices and not asking opinions of the people hired to do that job.
I agree 100% with that statement.
That was another statement that I remember from our initial training, was that to be a board member, you have to be 18 and a US citizen and not a felon or something like that. But, and then you have out here people with bachelor's and master's and degrees, and then we try to tell them what to do when, you know, when they're hired to do a specific job with a specific education, and we don't have that education.
Said that any better, Kurt? Moving on to D. What is the role of the board's committees? Now, I'm kind of in question on that. You really want, what is the role of the committees? Because I don't understand why the boards would be in there. Are we talking about?
That's a setup question. It's a setup question because I've heard you discuss previously in this meeting about the committees having a lot of involvement in the day-to-day operational decisions impacting Rusk County. And so that's a setup question because I'd like the committee's thoughts on structure, and then what would you like to see happen within your committee structure?
You're catch-22 in here, aren't you?
I'm so much to step on. I'm not making your job easy. You're earning your paycheck today.
That's all right. I still wrote down my thoughts. I'll go last. So if anybody else wants to step in?
So I just put down to provide oversight and to give direction.
You've got a whole lot more than that, John.
So some committees and some responsibilities in some of the committees are actually statutorily defined. And it would be helpful to, I think, start with which committees are required, and in those committees, what are the statutory obligations of those committees? That's like, because I think even that gets lost in the way it's currently being done.
Absolutely. Well, you're spot on today.
I did my homework.
Sue.
It seems like a lot of what goes on at the committees is actually brought back to the board to do something with. And that's not what the board is there for, is to make the decisions. So, there again, the roles and responsibilities should really be spot on. Everybody should know what they should be doing.
Kurt.
I think I mentioned it before, you know, I don't think a committee's function is to micromanage the department that they're overseeing. I think it's just to set broad policy and to let the department heads implement that policy. I don't think you have to, like I said, like I talked about before, I don't think you have to approve every single training session. I just don't think that's for the committee to do. I think it's broad policy and not micromanaging individual people.
Mine is, listen and discuss all items on the agenda, making the best recommendation solutions before it moves on to the next committee and or the full board. Overlook the departments, set standards, keep eye on the budget, give advice, set protocol and procedures, recommendations to the board, vet all information prior to giving to the next committee and or board. Too many committees taking up too much time, money, and senseless, I don't even know what that meant there, but I guess we stopped at too much time and money and senseless time, basically, so. But staying focused and on track, that's a tough one too. We don't even do that in some of these committees, or even at the board level, for that matter, but that's kind of where I'm at with my train of thoughts on that.
May I do a quick?
Yes, you may.
Okay, so I would say to give a high level assessment of what the committees do in Rusk County is A, what they should be doing, and B, what administration should be doing. There seems to be no separation of power or checks and balances because one group is making all of the decisions for the county. Policy decisions, personnel decisions, day-to-day operational decisions, and financial decisions. There are so many policies that micromanage department heads, and yet when the committee is tasked with enforcing their own policies set at the board level, they often fail to do so because they either don't want to say no, or they don't have enough of that day-to-day knowledge, the expertise in the field to make an informed decision, so they'll just default to whatever the department head wants, because I think we all trust our department heads, right? If they ask for something, we want to give it to them. But unfortunately, without some of that day-to-day knowledge and how that department operates, what our true budget stance is, what our fiscal policies are, maybe we're saying yes to something that we really shouldn't be.
I don't have anything to add. I basically said that, yeah, policies.
You gotta think of one thing. You gotta think of one thing to ask.
Well, what I did put is that, the role of the board committees is primarily to set those policies, and then we are tasked with carrying those forward.
So I do think there's an issue too with the way that committees interact with each other, right? And I don't know how we get around that or fix that, but
Meaning,
one committee under,
when's the other?
yeah.
Yeah, I have a real issue with that too. My whole point of that stance is, if I sit on a committee and it goes through 2 more committees and they vote no, and then it goes to the board and it votes no, whatever the case may be, why am I even on the committee? Why am I even here? I feel like that's wasted time on, that I could be somewhere else doing something. I mean, I know what I signed up for, and I sit on a committee for a reason, just like we all do. If our word or our information is incorrect, I'll take the hit and need to be corrected, that's fine. But our job is to vet everything at that committee level, and the next committees should just look at what we did already and be able to flow through. But there again, we go through 4 committees just to get to the board. I don't understand that.
And like I mentioned before, the gravity of some things that never make it to the full board, and then the minutia of other things that do make it to the full board is
Ridiculous.
it's, I can't wrap my brain, I can't figure it out.
Well, there's 5 different takes on your questions, Andy, 6, 7 takes on your questions. How'd we do?
You did wonderful, and this isn't graded because this is honestly a discussion starter for the balance of what we're gonna discuss at this meeting and at future meetings. Let me just interject for a second. How many of you think that you have too few committees of the county board? There aren't enough committees, we need more committees.
Yeah, if you were sitting here, I think you'd probably have a little more to say.
I know that nobody there thinks we have too many committees, or not enough committees. How many think we have too many committees?
Oh, absolutely.
Everybody. All right, so to me, I think you need to have a position in county government, whether you call it administrator or administrative coordinator, is responsible for ensuring that there's continuity between the committees and what they do, that those committees are brought up to date on all of the same information at the same time, and that there is a clear path, whether it be oversight of a particular department or on a legislative issue, a clear path on how it gets from committee to county board. I think that's critical, because otherwise, Mr. Chair, I heard you say there's a lot of wasted time in there, and I don't blame you for having that feeling, given what I understand to be happening. And so having that administrative coordinator or administrator with true responsibility for coordinating that effort, I think goes a long way.
Well, and I don't think some of the new members on the board, or even some of the old members, I don't know. But being the chairman, I don't think they understand exactly what I get called upon. If we was to have an AC in charge, or delegate some of these tasks to her, my phone would ring a whole lot less. And I wouldn't have to be in here 24/7, so to speak. Not that I'm complaining, I know what the job is, I get it, but this could be so much easier if we simplified it, when somebody's sitting right there. Am I correct in saying that?
You're 100% correct.
I like yelling at you better than her.
Well, my question is, how many committees do we have? 30, maybe? How many?
Do you mean like standing committees or like IPBEC, Northwest Regional Planning?
Yeah, all of them.
Oh, all of them? It's in the 20s.
It is in the 20s.
Yep.
And then you gotta add the ad hoc stuff to it.
Yeah, so we're probably
There's a lot
close
of
to 30. Yep.
What?
Yeah, oh
If
yeah.
you add in all the ad hocs, yeah, we're probably close to 30.
Oh my God, look at the money we could save.
Well, we have
Sure.
RCTC, Housing
So
Authority,
can we-
Library.
So
You're
can
counting a lot of those, so are small
Trails.
committees that,
Yep.
you know, like IPBEC, where
they do
it's more of an board appointee going to a meeting.
Okay, so if you break it down to standing committees and ad hoc committees, break all that out of there, where are we at, you think? If you had to guess.
17?
I think that's what we said, the number was 17 was what I remember.
Okay, yep.
Yeah,
Like
you
standing
can
committees or whatever, yeah.
I didn't go through and take a look.
So even at that point, I know I've talked about this with Connie and Ashley. Even probably Phil, I think, at one point in time. Some of these committees can be joined or be pulled together.
And could we have the help of the state to kind of not dictate, but tell us what other counties do? You know, they,
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
I mean, some of them only have 7 or 8
Yep.
committees, so we definitely could integrate our committees. And if we had the help of the state with us doing it, we wouldn't get all of the
Right.
phone calls, and
Andy and
we could
Sarah-
blame the state. No.
Well, and I think Andy and Sarah, correct me if I'm wrong, Andy, but you guys have already been down this road. Did you freeze up?
Again, you broke up there, Sarah,
Integrating
did
some
you
of
hear
these,
that question?
putting some of these
No, I
committees
think
together,
you
you
guys
guys.
break up, it's on, yeah.
Oh, it's
Yeah,
because.
we can
it's
assist with that, we've worked with other counties
We're on the Sally
on
Ports
their committee
Wi-Fi.
structures as well. And I think,
On the what one?
We're on the Sally Ports Wi-Fi, that's why.
Well, we're changing your network.
Well, and I mean, to put a finer point on what Sarah's saying, is that we work on counties, it's very important with their board rules and their committee structure. But first, you have,
Hold up.
What's the security key for County Board Chamber? Yeah, we're running off the Sally Port right now.
That one I don't know.
Okay, we'll just.
sorry.
No, that's okay, we'll just set it up.
Yeah.
help us in board rules and committee structure.
Can we call them?
great, can you guys hear us?
We had a little bit of technical difficulty there, so you're gonna have to repeat everything you just said.
I was going to say is that to put a finer point on Sarah's discussion is that we work with counties on their board rules and committee structure. For the first group, your administrative,
password for that new Wi-Fi?
once we have that defined, that will help us in determining the appropriate board rules
For the
and
Rusk
committee
County
structure.
Chamber, or Rusk County,
Chair.
Okay.
okay.
So basically, we need to work with the setting the ground rules for the AC part of it and moving from that point on. Correct.
The AC part of it, or, I mean, if you decided that we're gonna not consider administrator, is that right?
I'm not saying.
Just
no,
wanna shoot
but-
it,
Okay,
Okay, thank you.
and that's up to you all. I mean, if we wanna consider administrator, to me, administrator is cleanest simply because we have clear statutory authority to what an administrator does. We don't have that same clarity when it comes to administrative coordinator. And so I find that for ease of understanding roles and responsibilities, the administrator form is preferred. That's not to say that we can't attempt to replicate that form with the administrative coordinator. We can do that, it just takes a little bit more work.
Okay, that's interesting.
I think back in the day, administrative coordinator was given just needed it for name only. Cause back in the day, it was the county clerk that did the administrative coordinator, because we needed, it was when it was first put into like law,
87.
right? Kurt, you remember that?
I think 87 is when I read the statutes or whatever, started out
Yeah,
in 87.
so I think what happened was, is they needed somebody by statutory to put it there for name only, and that's what it was. And so that's,
So this position or this name has just been kind of riding all these years.
Yes.
And been delegated to not have any authority, but we expect you to run the whole building.
so when I was in forestry, Ted East was really the first one that we had.
Correct.
We didn't have somebody that just did that job. We had, the county clerk, and she was just here and there, you know what I mean? It wasn't like it is now. So then, Ted went to, was it Andy? And then, Ashley. Well, I've been here.
Well, was it the forestry guy was in there as an
Yeah,
intern?
Well, he was just interim, because we didn't have, Andy had left. They tried giving it to me, and I said, hey, no way. I want it. So I think that's how I got to where we're at.
Well, and then I think, when Andy was here, we tried to get a job description from him. I don't think there was a job description even. And then I realized that what he was doing wasn't working, cause there was 3 different jobs being done. So then it got split off into HR, facilities manager, and administrative coordinator. And we stopped kinda short of putting a whole lot of detail in the
Then he went to, then we got rid of,
descriptions and stuff.
maintenance to Phil, and then he got maintenance thrown on him as well. It was a lot.
Not sure where we go from here, Andy, I'm kinda lost, so you guys are either gonna have to take the meeting over and kinda just throw something or.
I would love it if you all could take a look at your administrative coordinator job description, and based on the answers to the 4 questions previously asked, tell us, or tell yourselves, or have a discussion about whether you think this job description appropriately reflects what you'd like the administrative coordinator to do in Rusk County.
Already read it all the time.
Would it help if I went through and gave you my thoughts first?
Well, I read this like over and over last night, and that's how I came up with my answers I did, but this description here, for me, does not fit. But if you got some advice on your side of what you think, yeah, go ahead first.
Well, here, let me just, I'll walk through this and show you some of the areas of concern that I noted. Okay? First, under purpose of the position, it says that leadership functions set forth by the county board in accordance with the authority set forth in Wisconsin State Statute 59.19. There is no authority in 59.19. That statute is silent on authority. So even the purpose of the position is, in my view, inaccurate.
So that whole statement.
Second, provides it. Second, when we talk about fundamental job duties and responsibilities under policy, provides input on ordinances, resolutions, and policies in concert with corporation counsel. Your corporation counsel ought not be weighing in on policy. Your corporation counsel is your legal advisor. And so I don't know why your administrative coordinator would be required to consult or expected to consult with corporation counsel on policy initiatives. Second, prepares reports to the county board, reports about what? Finance, personnel, policy, I don't know what the report is. Fourth bullet, ensures that ordinances, resolutions, policies, regulations, state and federal law are observed and executed with help from corporation counsel. I don't know that your administrative coordinator has independent authority to effectuate any of that. Next, court action of all county administrative businesses. If somebody can tell me what that means, I will buy them dinner next time I'm in Livingston. I have no idea what that means. Egg. Operational oversight, making day-to-day operational decisions at the direction of the county board chair. Why does the county board chair have operational authority? That's nowhere in the statute, that's nowhere in the ordinance. The rest is fine. Financial, evaluates, advocates, and assists. External relations, point of contact under the direction of the board chair. Again, not quite sure why the board chair has a role in that. The rest of it is okay, but I think, and again, I'm not attempting to be hypercritical here because this isn't easy, all right? But I think that you can see just on my brief discussion points here that we have some work to do on this job description if we want our administrative coordinator to be the administrative head of Rusk County government. And so I think we ought to be thinking about how to reorganize and reword what's contained within this job description to provide more authority and more clarity to what it is that we're asking Ashley to do. I think, Sarah, did you share with the county any of the other job descriptions from other counties? Did we do that yet?
I don't think we did that yet. I think typically that's meeting 2.
That's fine.
This isn't your first meeting of this sort, son.
Yeah.
And so I think that one of the things you could benefit from is that nobody should be expected to invent the wheel here. There are other counties that have prepared job descriptions for administrative coordinators that accomplish what it is, at least based on what I've heard today, accomplish what it is that I think you all want to see. And so let's take a look at those job descriptions and see, does this make sense in terms of what we would expect Ashley to do, what kind of power we would delegate to her? And I think from there then, you can take a look at your current job description and say, oh, okay, this is what we need to revise, this is what it should contain. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
And I think in coordination with that, we also have job descriptions from county administrators. We also have 59.18 of the statutes. We can take a look at those materials and say, does it make sense to consider whether we want a county administrator in Rusk County? And you can see the distinction or differences between those two sets, the administrative coordinator and the administrator. And you can then evaluate what is the best fit for Rusk County right now. And Sarah, I don't know if you want to give an overview of some of the counties that we've worked with in terms of those job descriptions and what we have for resources, because I know you've sent out various packets of information over the course of the past couple of months.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I have a database of job descriptions from multiple counties. There's probably about, I don't know, maybe, because I don't wanna overwhelm counties, sometimes I take about 3, 4, 5 county administrator job descriptions and 3, 4, 5 administrative coordinator job descriptions, send them out to the counties and ask them to take a look at it, review them, kind of, in essence say, boy, these look good, or these certain provisions give us heartburn with regard to delegating these types of authorities to an individual. So I've got, and I'll tell you, there's, some county job descriptions are better than others. We will give you the ones that we think will be most helpful to you to review as you begin your discussion to determine what it is you want that position to do. I will say, when I look at these things though, I sometimes when I'm talking to counties, I said, whether it's an administrator job description or whether it's administrative coordinator job description, I like you really to look at the functions included within them. And then we can determine, what the job title is that you may be most comfortable with. if it's administrator, if it's administrative coordinator. You know, but again, some of these are rather lengthy job descriptions, and you'll get, 30 pages worth of stuff for me. But I think it's well worth your time in reviewing all of them. You'll probably also notice a lot of similarities in them as well. But I should.
Go ahead.
Oh no, I was gonna say, happy to send those on.
I was going to suggest that the next meeting, one of the agenda items, probably at the top of the list, is review of other county job descriptions and revisions to the Rusk County Administrative Coordinator job description. And then have a separate agenda item about consideration of county administrator position. But that just means that you all have homework between this meeting and next. We got some reading to do.
So send the information out well ahead of time, so we got time, especially
Yes.
if it's quite a bit of information.
You bet. We will send it over, if not today, tomorrow, and then you all can determine how much time you need to go through that. If you wanna set the next meeting date for 2 weeks down the road, 3 weeks down the road, whatever makes the most sense, just give yourselves adequate time to do that homework, because I think it's a very worthwhile endeavor. Sarah and I worked with several counties on this entire process, and it's never simple, it's never quick, but we found that it's most successful when there's adequate time, and effort put into understanding the materials.
I agree.
So do you think the full board's gonna agree with whatever the 5 of us come up with?
Well, that really depends on,
You just talked about that, yeah.
how many committees it's gotta go through.
Well, I think from here it goes to the board, but I think that we're here to kind of figure out what direction we think the board would wanna take, right? If we got,
I know I was throwing a little humor in there.
that'd be funny.
I'm being funny, because I'm serious, but I'm being funny at the same time, because, yes, the 5 of us are here to try and determine the roles, the responsibilities from here to the AC, to the committees, to the board rules, everything. That is our whole outlook of this. Because it probably hasn't been revamped since like 1950. And it's 2025, so it's time to catch up a little. So, to your questions, I think if we do our homework diligently with the help of WCA and Andy and ourselves and anybody involved, I think we got a good shot.
And honestly, I think most job descriptions I've seen go before the board, including the last administrative coordinator, I don't think I've ever seen one not pass. There might have been some revisions added at the board, but generally, going into it, people got a pretty good idea of, what they want out of a position.
Well, here's a question for you.
Yeah.
You've been on here as long as I have. Do you feel that we should not give her the appropriate, and it's such a bad word, not a bad word, but do you feel it's inappropriate to give her the power that she needs to make this building function like it should, instead of just letting her sit there in the west wing doing nothing, so to speak?
I think she does more than nothing.
Well, I get that, but what I'm saying is, we know she does stuff, and we know she does a lot, but when it comes right down to the brass tacks, she really does nothing, because she has no power to do anything. So my question is, do you feel that we should not give them power to run the building?
Well, I think we should find out what the administrator versus what
Administrator.
her title is. And maybe she doesn't even want it. Maybe she wants to go for administrator. You know, we've never even asked her. And I'm not asking you now, you don't have to come out with it, but no, we've never asked her.
Well, it is possible if we change the position,
Right.
that we have to rehire the position too. It may not
Correct.
be fair. Like, if we significantly change the position, I mean, obviously Ashley would have a distinct advantage, a competitive edge. position is very changed, that it's not still her job anymore, it's a different job that needs to be rehired. She may or may not want. Right?
Agree with that. I mean, that's, to me, depends on how drastic the job description is altered, and what kind of not necessarily qualifications, but is it financial experience? I mean, do you need financial experience? I don't know. I mean, that's a question that needs to be asked. You can oversee the whole thing, you need, well,
And whatever the right policy is the right policy, irrespective of the person, right? Like, we're trying to make a decision on what is the best way to manage this county, irrespective of people and who's in that job.
Right, my
That's
job-
something to bring to the board, like when we come to the board and say, you know, okay, here's what we came up with. We're voting on a position. Regardless of the person, is the best position.
Correct.
Otherwise, and that's where I think the board gets carried away, where, well, I think this, or I think that, and they start looking at, well, if this person has it, or this person has it, but when we bring a job description, it should be irregardless of who's in that position currently, or whatever else, we need to bring the position, say this is the best position, this is the best fit for the county.
And that was kind of my question too. I wasn't referring to her at all. You know, as far as I'm concerned, she's off in left field. This is like a whole new platform. That's where my question was coming, and I don't know if I came on strong about it or not. If I did, I apologize, but I was just trying to feel or see how everybody feels about that, giving power to the right people to run the building.
And if we do have recommendations from them and have a job description, we'll all know what we're looking for.
You have to give people the tools to do the job, right? And right now, the tools aren't there to effectively do the job. But I think part of the problem is there's no trust either, and so, or little trust, and so then the concept of it philosophically, we'll all agree with, but then the implementation is where we're gonna have trouble because of trust issues.
On a lot of this job description here, other than a few things in it, to me, this was already set up for failure before it even started.
what is that?
Just the way it's laid out. With prepares the county board with the.
Current job description.
Yeah.
Current one.
The current one, okay.
That's what I mean, the
I
current
think
one.
we all agree we
Yeah,
need a new job description.
Yes, I agree with
I'm
that.
just saying, I think he or she was set up for failure before it even started.
I wouldn't disagree with that.
I don't know, I'm just.
Explain, when we look at, I'm gonna jump back up to agenda item number 3, the goals of the committee, because again, talking about presentation to the county board, I think the recommendation ought to go from this ad hoc committee to the board, ought not go through other county board committees. I think the county board delegated responsibility to this committee to evaluate options and come back with a recommendation. Part of that is going to be a discussion with the board about the process that you went through in reaching your recommendation, and that has to be a discussion of all of the different factors that you evaluated and what it is that you want to accomplish in the rewrite of the job description, in the transition to administrator, if that's the recommendation, and so on. And so if you adequately tell that story, I think you have a much better chance of success on the county board floor.
And we keep personalities completely out of it.
Oh, absolutely.
We're not judging anybody or putting the job description towards anybody. It's just straightforward and
And this is for future setup, he or she or whoever. Whoever's in that position, however this gets all rolled. You can have this done in about 30 days, right?
No, it's not gonna be 30 days.
Typically, how
We'll see where we go after the next committee meeting.
how many months have you worked on this with other counties? Like 2, 3?
Anywhere from 6 to, right now we're in a county where we're going on month 8, I think it is. Sarah, what do you think?
Yeah, I think counties that have a good process in place, it's about 6 months, I would say.
So,
To
so
make
we're not
sure,
on the
and
lower
I
end.
think that,
Yeah,
well,
next
I
time
mean,
we'll take 6 months.
you know, but as Andy said, I think the process is important. I mean, there's a reason we're sending you questions to ask and talk about. There's a reason we wanna send you these job descriptions. But I'm pretty certain will come with another set of questions with it too, for you guys to think about. Because at the end, as Andy said, you need to sell this to the full county board. And you do that by talking about all the steps that you took to get to that particular recommendation. And so I think sometimes there's a danger if we do this too quickly. So I think it's important that we take the time and follow the steps, and make sure that we are, addressing all of the issues, making sure that we are investigating and exploring. The first discussion never should be, is it is admin coordinator administrator, but let's talk about the function is that we want these individuals to do or to perform, and then we go from there. So I think it's, there's steps to this process that I think in the end will lead you to the decision that you will make, but it may take, it's not gonna happen overnight. It won't be tomorrow. It won't be in the next 2 weeks, but I think the next few months definitely will get there.
Well, I'd say send that out to us, Sarah, when you get a chance. On the AC or the administrator. I wanna see how that lays out too. How closely they ride
Yeah.
together, but different.
Well, and we might look at what an administrator does, and then by the time we get to administrative coordinator job description, say, okay, they're like basically the same thing at this point.
Well, Andy, you've given, done the WCA conference and stuff, not just there, but you've given some pretty good, powerful speeches about the AC and the administrator.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I kinda remember.
Yeah, we talk about that quite often, in terms of functional equivalence. The rub that I see is that oftentimes counties are fearful of giving too much authority to an administrator. And I understand, I'm not negating that, I understand. But then they create an administrative coordinator position that functions as an administrator, but doesn't have the statutory authority behind it. And we end up in a position where we still have the same blurred lines of distinction in roles and responsibilities. We have questions about power, authority, because it's not statutory. The administrator has certain statutory authority that cannot be taken away, and it cannot be changed by the county board. All right, so you may get to the point where you look at it and say, okay, here's our perfect job description for the Rusk County Administrative Coordinator. And you look at 59.18 of the statute and say, wait a minute, this job description is exactly what's in 59.18. Why don't we just make that position an administrator? You may get there, you may not. I think we just have to evaluate that. Let me ask this question too, before I forget, and it's on the agenda. I looked at your county board supervisor job description. I didn't have big issues, big red flags. There's stuff I nitpick here and there, and maybe word a little bit different, but I don't see a big issue with this job description. Do any of you?
The only one I'm in question at or on, I mean, I read it. My question on one part of it is taking part in activities on the board and serving on one or more standing committees, or special committees, boards, and commissions as appointed by the county board chairperson. Okay, that's the only one that raises a question for me, because we have a committee on committee.
Our ordinance says.
What trumps what? That's kinda,
Well,
it's
this is
kinda
a
weird.
job description, our ordinance is what would govern
So
that.
that trumps the county chairperson, the county board
Well, this is
chairperson?
a job description,
Right.
this isn't giving authority to anybody.
It's
Or is
as
it?
appointed by the county board chairperson. So you're saying that the committee on committee trumps this language?
Yeah, because that's in our actual procedures, is that we have a committee.
So take it out. I mean,
Yeah,
it shouldn't be in there.
Yeah, I would agree.
I don't care one way or another, unless I'm wrong, Andy, reading it, if I'm reading that wrong.
No, I mean, you're right, so we wanna conform that to what our ordinances say. And I think we should do that, obviously. But I was looking at the job description, the thought in my mind was, it's not a problem what's in this job description, the problem is actually doing what the job description says. Is that right now we have committees functioning in different capacities, we have committees doing things that we think they ought not be doing, other committees that aren't doing what they think we should be doing, and so on. So it's not an issue with what's in the job description, it's an issue with the committees actually doing, and the county board of supervisors doing what they think they ought to do. That was my take.
No, that's a fair statement. I don't disagree with that.
And so then when we get into, and I mean, I know a lot of the agenda items kind of lead into one another on this agenda here. We have discussion on roles and responsibilities. I think a lot of that discussion happened when we talked about the 4 questions. And I think a lot of that discussion will continue as you evaluate those administrative coordinator and administrative job descriptions. And so I think that's an agenda item that will recur on future agendas of this committee. Because I think you should always be asking, what's the appropriate role of our administrative branch? What's the appropriate role of our legislative branch within Rusk County government? So let's have that discussion after we inform ourselves on some examples where we see administrative coordinators or administrators performing things differently than what Ashley is doing in Rusk County. And then evaluate roles and responsibilities.
I agree. Okay, well, I don't have a problem with that. That was my only question. As far as reading through this whole thing though, Andy, you didn't see no real hiccups on the board supervisor side of it?
No. No, I mean, when we get to the conversation about board rules, I'd probably take some of the elements related to appropriate conduct by board supervisors, pull that into the board rules, frankly, but I didn't see anything in the job description that raised giant red flags when I just did.
Okay. I kinda feel like there's discussion of responsibilities and roles and responsibilities. I don't think it's in your job description. Right, everybody else got anything about going? Was that pretty much sum it up then, Andy, where we're gonna start and kinda go from there?
I think it does. I think that I wanna continue the discussion on administrator, administrative coordinator, and roles and responsibilities for the next meeting. We've got homework before then, so how much time do you all need to get that homework done before we get together again?
My next week is out, so I'll need an extra day on this one.
March.
Well, last time works for Kurt,
Second and fourth Mondays are open.
which would be the 17th of March. Or, yeah, the 17th of March. So that'd be a month out.
The 17th of March is the 3rd Monday, so that would work.
I know, I wrote all that down in my calendar version. We're thinking like March 17th, Andy and Sarah.
that'd be fine, I've got a 2:30 meeting that will take me about a half hour to an hour, so if we start at 3 or 3:30, that would be fine, and if I can't be there at the beginning, Sarah will say all sorts of things that are much more intelligent than what I would say.
Three or 3:30?
It doesn't matter to me.
3:30 is better, but
That's fine.
if, depending on what everybody else wants, I can do 3 o'clock though, so.
And everybody has to wear green that day.
Yeah, St. Patrick's Day.
We'll shoot for 3:30 then, Andy, if that works for you.
That's perfect, I'll put it in my calendar now, that's perfect.
Said 3:30, John.
Yes.
And then, I don't wanna add to the homework assignment here, but I want everybody to think about, we have goals of the committee here, what is it that you wanna see in terms of a deliverable to the county board, what does that look like? It's more than just, hey, we recommend that we revise Ashley's job description. Other than that, I wanna, you all know your board a lot better than I do, a lot better than Sarah does, what does your board gonna wanna see?
And have our ducks in a row and good reasons and explanation all the way through.
Yeah, is that a PowerPoint presentation, who's gonna give that presentation? You want Sarah and I available for that discussion and so on? No need to answer that now, just think about it before the next meeting.
We have a really good board, or a good set of folks here that we should go through that.
I think we should be able to present it by the time we're done without a problem. I mean, I'm good if they can, but if we're,
That's okay.
Should know it inside and out.
yeah, we should, if we're gonna show it to the board, we should be able to.
That's a sweet thing. He doesn't know he's being delegated. What's that?
I'm just telling you.
Not me, I'm not a good presenter. I do a lot of,
Sarah and I worked with a county that was, they were really split on what direction they should take. They ended up combining the position of administrator and HR director. And, they went through a very deliberate process of going through all options, talking with other counties, looking at job descriptions, came out with a PowerPoint presentation that talked about not only their recommendation, but why they were making that recommendation. And it got a unanimous vote at the board floor. I was shocked. I know, Sarah, you were shocked too.
Well, yeah, especially when one of the board members spent his whole time during debate and discussion talking about how he was going to vote against it. And then they got to him on the vote, and after the discussion, he changed his mind, decided to vote for it. But I think some of it that was really powerful there was the fact that it was the board members that gave the presentation, that gave the talk. It's not Andy and Sarah coming in with their edict saying this is what you should do. But instead, the board members said, we had all these discussions, we did all of this homework, we did all of this stuff, and they came up with the recommendations, and we were there just to answer questions. And I think that's something to consider, so, but again, I've been taking notes too about things, agenda items for the next meeting, so I'll send that along with the homework assignment.
That's a good point, so Sarah, I like the way you said that. It would come better from one of the board members or one of us in this group as us saying this is kind of where we're going and where we should look at going versus them saying we recommend. That's a big difference when somebody says it that way. Good, Sally?
if it comes from them, it's like we're forwarding it on, but if we
Correct.
present it, it's like,
It's almost like we made them do the homework and we're just sitting here following the lead. And that's not what we wanna do. We wanna keep the lead on this to follow it all the way through.
How many board members are still on, that were on when the job description was created, when the administrative coordinator was created?
That's a good
me
question.
and you were on.
Yeah. Me and you were
That
on.
was, what was it, April, May, June 2022, what did we put as Nelson?
It'd be, Phil, Jerry, Terry,
Tom,
Tom Kudo.
Dan Goodis,
Willingham,
No, Goodis wasn't on.
Hanson.
It was just Willingham, Hanson,
Good, Lois
Lois
is on,
Good, yep,
Jim,
and Jim Meyer,
Phil Schneider.
Hanson.
and Bill Schneider.
So half.
We said him, so, and myself, so.
A good half.
a good half, but, a good half of us on this side, on the board yet.
Took a long time to
Like
get
you
it
said, it
approved.
was a good half.
Yeah, so when that job description was created, in that position, what was the thinking then? Why wasn't the authority given then? Why wasn't the county administrator form of government chosen? Or why wasn't their authority delegated at that time?
I have to honestly answer that. We just got on. You and I both did. We just got on. And I'm gonna tell you straight up, it takes a lot to get your feet wet on what's going on in the government.
You're not telling me.
So, if I was to say it was this, and that, I'd be lying. I don't know.
I mean, cause that's,
I do remember the conversation about administrative coordinator versus administrator, and I think the fear was that giving too much power to one person was the
That was it.
selling point of not at that time, and I think there was kind of.
so that's my question, is that fear still here? I mean, that's why I wanted the head count, is that still here? Because that's gonna be the discussion.
I don't,
I mean, what job description or what title you go with, the theory is to hand over some of that authority. I mean,
Right.
if you call it a coordinator, you call it an administrator, and if it couldn't been given up 3 years ago, I mean, we gotta figure out a reason to sell it, or to convince it this time around, you know?
That's what I was trying to say before. You said much better.
I'm not sure if I did or I did, but I mean, it's, yeah, you know. That's my question is, you know, I mean.
And part of that too, I mean, is, I don't know if me or John, either one of us would have necessarily supported an administrator at the time, knowing what we knew. It just seemed like we just started and it's like, give this person all this authority. And now being on long enough, we see, you know, some of the inefficiencies of how we are, which of course a job description change is gonna help with that anyways, but some of it might be, just education as on, instead of being new on the work, could have affected some of that decision
Yep.
as well.
we've got a good board. We've got a really good board on hand. And again, it's just, once we can get the new members up to speed on a lot of the stuff, I'm not gonna lie, it took me all of a year, like or so, just to even get my feet wet to know what's going on. There's a lot to take in. I won't say, you know, I still know everything by any means, and I'm still learning, but just the daily functions on how everything works is a lot.
It's a big, the county government's a big beast. I mean, it's a big, I've been township government and city government for 30 years, but county government's a big beast. There's just a lot of moving parts, lots of moving parts.
That's why we love it.
What's that?
That's why we love it.
Yeah.
Attorneys, of course they love it.
Yeah.
Well, and that's what we'll do, Andy, send out that stuff, Sarah, so we can get on our homework and whatnot. Otherwise, we'll set the next meeting up for March 17th at 2:30 p.m.
That sounds good. If you need anything in the interim, I'm happy to provide it. Whatever you need, we want to make sure you're getting all the information necessary, so just let us know.
I think we start where we're gonna start, like you're saying, with the AC and administrative both ways, figure out how these both lay out and see where we come with that and keep moving forward from that point.
That sounds real good.
So, alrighty, well,
Motion to adjourn?
I don't see much else on here. We set the next meeting, so motion to adjourn by Ms.
Albert.
Albert. Second by Mr. Undershoots, all in favor say aye. Aye. We're adjourned.
All right, take care, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you, Andy, thank you, Sarah.